Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the Wakili.sha Podcast, which is brought to you by Wakili.sha Initiative, where we promote access to justice and education for children in conflict to the law. Here we do that through free legal representation, mentorship, skills and talent development, youth upskilling, public awareness, and advocacy. So on this podcast, we really want to show that children in conflict to the law are children who are actually in need of care and protection. Their rights should be protected, and we should go the extra mile to ensure that we are not dismissing them as troublesome children, and we're being careful to understand what is the story behind this child, behind the crime that you're meeting. So that's what we want to highlight on this podcast, and we welcome you on this journey. We are happy to be back.
So happy to be back.
Yay. My name is Elizabeth Jambi. I am the founder and CEO of Wakili.sha, and these are my co-hosts, Zippy.
Hi, I'm Zipporah Njuguna. I'm the productions manager at Wakili.sha, and it feels good to be back.
Yeah, my name is Brian Bright. I am the co-director of communications at Wakili.sha and co-host of this podcast, and I'm so happy to be back. I think the last time we were together is 2021. Yeah.
It has been 2 years almost. I think we were last in studio in 2021, although we've been doing amazing things at Wakili.sha. So let me ask you, starting with ZP, what have the last 2 years been? What is life lately for you from Wakili.sha's perspective, but also maybe in your personal life?
Okay, personally, on a personal level, there's been so much growth. I also feel I'm more at peace. Our pilot season, there was so much going on. And actually, I guess I highlighted it when we were doing our reflections towards the end of our pilot season. So yes, it feels good to just learning who I am outside the chaos. Yeah, and it feels good to just be at peace and more calmer.
Yeah, it's beautiful to hear that. And also, as someone who knows the journey that you've been on, it's beautiful to just see you, like even your face is radiant, it's happy. If you're listening, you better go look at her face on YouTube. Yeah, but it's absolutely beautiful to hear that, and we pray for more growth. Yeah, that's the goal in life.
Yes.
Yeah. Right?
Yeah, it's been a great almost 2 years, I can say. Yeah, because I think we ended the end of 2021, around November actually. So yeah, it's been almost 2 years. So much has happened in my personal life as well. I feel like I know what I'm doing. Maybe. I got married. Just kidding.
I was like, how did we miss the invite?
I'm not married just yet. If you remember what I looked like in season 1, I always had my ring. So yeah. But yeah, I just feel like I know what I'm doing for once in my life. And so much growth personally, seeing Wakili.sha grow. The last couple of years have been very fulfilling and very.
It's just beautiful to think of the time we were in and what was happening then. I just remember these recordings we had to cancel because maybe someone's got COVID and you don't know like what are the precautions to take. It was just, in addition to all the things that were happening in our personal lives, there was still a lot more going on. And it's beautiful to know that we have come from that. And even though the world is in its own other form of darkness at the moment, that gives me some hope that we got through this, we will get through this, and I hope that we'll get through that and get to happier better, happier times, as opposed to a lot of the things that are happening in the world at the moment. Yeah. On a personal note, I cut my hair. I dyed it like 1,000,001 colors. I am now growing it back. It's now mostly black, and I even want to cut out like the remaining part of the color. But for me, that I think signifies the journey that I've been on. It was a very turbulent time to start with, and the colors were kind of like the changes that are happening, learning, unlearning, relearning. And now, as you both are saying, I'm feeling a bit more at peace, a bit more clear. There's still things I'd want to figure out even as I adult and, navigate through life and adulting. But I do feel genuinely happier, and I have grown, From a Wakili.sha perspective, we have grown. I've been to the US and the UK representing Wakili.sha. We have so many other projects which we can't get into now, but you can follow our social media channels and get to know what we've been up to. But this year in June, we had the Day of the African Child celebrations.
Yes.
Yeah, that was amazing, guys. So much was happening. We had over, I think, 80 to 100 participants. We had children, we had a media training workshop, we had officers from correctional facilities, we did a training on digital literacy and safety. So the theme we did for that was child justice in the digital environment. And we had 3 panels as part of that celebration. Like a lot was happening. And so today on 20th November, Happy World Children's Day, everyone. So under the theme for every child, every right, we want to celebrate child justice in the digital environment. So we're talking justice, we're talking education as it relates to the digital environment. And as we know, we work with children in conflict to the law. So bringing all of that together, we are bringing you the 3 panels. So this is a special 3-part series to be discussing that. And each of us will kind of take turns leading the conversation on the different panels. So we welcome you on this 3-part series. And we want to say, first of all, a big thank you to the sponsors we had on that day. Yes. I can't list them all, but if you check the link in the description, there should be a link that shows you the program and everything we did and the report. And you can see everyone who has made this a fantastic journey for us. And lastly, before we get into the juice, I want to mention that these episodes are a bit long, right? Yeah, normally our episodes are about 30 minutes or 35 minutes, but these ones are bordering around an hour just because there's a lot that was discussed, and we invite you to really listen in to the very end because it's very, very important conversations. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So without much further, thank you. Did I mention I've become funnier? Yeah, without what they said, let's take a listen to the first panel that was discussing child digital literacy and safety.
We are happy to be here. My name is Ruth Juliet Gachanja. I am an advocate. I am a lecturer at Kabarak University. I am the Child Justice Advisor to the Office of the Chief Justice. So this is a wonderful conversation that we are about to have. I am joined by our amazing experts, and they're going to be telling us what it is that they do. We have a short time, so please do send the questions to the Mentico that you've been given. I will now invite our guests to just briefly explain to us who they are, what they do, and what is very relevant about today and the commemoration that we are having on this Day of the African Child.
So thank you very much. My name is Joachim Kamau. I come from Childline, Kenya, Child Helpline, Kenya. Ideally, with the collaboration with the DCS, that is the Directorate of Children's Services, we manage the national helpline. That is the National Child Helpline 116. And we have counselors and professionals who respond to calls 24 hours. A line that is toll-free and available for anyone to call, be it a child, be it a caregiver, be it a teacher, or any other social service provider, in response or rather to seek child support services, be it counseling, be it medical service aid, or anything of the sort, and then we're there to support. So ideally, we're also doing sensitization to communities, ideally to strengthen structures at the national level, at the county level, to respond and be able to give appropriate response to online child sexual exploitation and abuse at the organizational level. So thank you.
My name is Margaret Njihia. I'm a clinical psychologist. I am also a child therapist, and I'm a co-founder and the lead psychologist at Sterling Wellness Center and Sterling Performance Africa. And what we do, we are a consultancy firm and a counseling center. We work with children, we work with families, and specifically in the space of children, we also train in child play and art therapy with special focus to those who are working in the child justice system to equip them with skills and knowledge that they can use when they are working with children. We are firm believers in justice for children and having people working in this space, having the requisite skills to make them better child protection officers and people who appreciate working with children. So happy to be here to celebrate the Day of the African Child. Thank you.
So hi everyone today. I'm Kilel. I'm one of the program managers or product managers in Microsoft covering cloud security. And secondly, what brought me here is the part for child online protection. So I'm also one of the founders of SheHacks Kenya. Not sure most of us are familiar with it, but basically our goal is to just educate different students and also now children to the world of cyberspace, where what can they learn around that area. And I was also in Kabarak as a student though.
Hi, my name is Evelyn Apondi. I am an advocate who works with the Center for Rights Education and Awareness, better known as CREAW. At CREAW, we offer services, more especially on violence against women and girls, and that's the department where I fall under. We have other services that are program work like SRHR, among others. What we do for the child, and especially the girl child, is to represent them in court when they are survivors, for instance, if they've been victims in cases of, let's say, defilement and violence in general. We are centered on SGBV matters. It's important that we are here today because we are talking about the child. We are talking about our future, and we need to secure them. And the digital space has opened up a plethora of new avenues for this child to be harassed sexually and otherwise. And so therefore, this is a conversation that needs to be had. It is timely because we are now moving to the digital space and there's nothing we can do about it. The only thing we can do is protect our children. So I'm happy to be here.
Thank you so much, and karibuni sana. We're going to have a wonderful conversation on protecting our children. We're going to be looking at, the digital safety issues. And I want to start our conversation from this place. Now, we all understand what we are commemorating when you talk about the Day of the African Child. At the time, when the children in South Africa took to the streets to protest, they did not use, they didn't have the digital platforms to do it. But today, if you look at the media, TikTok, what's the other one? Facebook, Instagram, particularly TikTok, we are finding an opportunity where children, or rather you see an opportunity where children really come out to voice their issues. And it works both ways. So the first question I want to ask our panelists, and honestly I want to ask just anybody, feel free to answer this question. In what way can we make sure, can we leverage on the digital environment for children to be able to have their voices heard, for them to be able to speak out, for them to even protest against what is happening? Is there a space? Is it safe? Is there a way we can make it safer? And how do we protect the children from the aftermath? The children in South Africa died physically. The reports that we have about our children is that they get into depression and they're dying slowly. So, how do we get our children to participate safely? What are the avenues to protect the aftermath? And do we even have that space where, like the children in South Africa, took to the streets? Maybe Joachim can start.
Okay, maybe I'll begin. When I look into the South African incident, the white man thought it by himself that it was good to take away the Afrikaners, which was the language that was used at that time, and bring in English, an idea that did not sell too well with most of the students that were there at that time. So ideally, how I look at it, I feel like the structures that were there, the community, the nation that was there at that time was not sensitized enough to uptake an idea that could come out of a child. And I feel if there's a safe environment for my child, then we need to create that environment, we ourselves, and have the structures that we have, the national structure, the community structure, the social service workforce, ready to be able to uptake any contribution that comes from a child. And I feel like if the systems that were there at that time were strong enough to accommodate the voice of the child, then what we saw at that time could not have happened. So I feel like the structures need to be ready to uptake the voices of the child.
Thank you very much, Joachim. So you talk about that there should be a structure that is able to uptake, probably even process,
yes, true.
and have a conversation with the adults pertaining to what the children are protesting about.
Yeah.
So Eve, through SheHacks Kenya and any other platform, is there a way to create that structure? So Joachim is talking about, physically, but is there a way to create a structure online which is safe for children to participate and have their information taken? Thank you.
I can take the part of, I've seen a few of parents who are my friends where they actually buy for their children things like tablets and what they can use. So basically, for this child to be able to access that, the mom and the dad have created an access control level of you can only access this device at this point in time. And that creates a safe space where this child cannot go above and beyond what they are supposed to access. And if the time expires, what happens? They have to request again, like, hey, dad, hey, mom, can you extend my access to this platform? Because they mostly, probably they would use for constructive things like drawing and even like watching the different videos that children would really like to watch, or even do the assignments. And that's the enablement that the online part would help children achieve. And basically, creating a safe platform is monitoring the level of what access is that kid having, at what level are they doing constructive work, and at what level have they gone rogue. The meaning of rogue is if they now start accessing things that they're not supposed to access. So are you as a parent able to now monitor that? Are you able to see that? Or do you let your children just go ahead and do whatever they want? No, not really. Not what you want. And some parents would say, as long as that kid is not above 18, they're still under my watch. So basically, that's a bigger thing that parents should really take keen on and make sure that in any way that the child is accessing any data or any platform, even YouTube, there's YouTube for kids. Basically, such platforms, you should be able to monitor what is this kid has accessing, and is it constructed to them? Does it help them, or is any way causing harm to this child? Yeah, that's it.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Eve. I want to bring it back to Ms. Njihia. Again, going back into that story that we are trying to tell about, so we start off with the children need to protest, and they have gone on. Eve has provided for them with this platform where it's, through the tablet or YouTube or whatever. And then there is a backlash. For those of us who use Twitter, you see if you post something, if there's a platform I'm totally scared of, is Twitter, because as soon as you post something, it comes back to you. And if it's the children, they're using TikTok. So is there a way to shield and to protect the child as a parent that Eve is talking about, what is it that I can do from a psychological perspective, or even from your work, and even from practical things that we can do as parents? How do we shield our children? How do we protect our children? How do we deal with that aftermath?
I think it will start from the point of empowerment. The same way we talk to children and tell them about drugs, about alcohol, about teenage sex, and about all the other things, we also need to get into the space where we are having this conversation about children, about tech. We need to let the children know that the gadgets that they have, that the schools are advocating and are pushing for them to use them, because the schools expect that the children are going to use the laptops or they are going to use the parents' smartphone in order for them to access information. We need to teach them and educate them about the power of that gadget. We need to let them know about good and proper use, and we also need to teach them about misuse of that gadget and why it can have positive outcome and negative outcome. Because children see us using the gadgets, that's what we are all using at home. You carry your work home and you're seated there with your laptop and with your iPad as you drive. You're still in meetings and engaged. We are constantly connected to these gadgets. Then a child will not see that as having negative outcome. Remember, we are talking about children. They're below the age of 25. What are we saying? They're below the age of 18. What are we saying? Even in terms of their mental development, they're not fully developed. They don't have the capacity to critically understand and analyze situations. And that's why, and as I say this, I'm being very careful. We don't want to, I don't want people to use this and say that, yeah, we can take advantage of this. That's why it's very easy to manipulate children and to hook them into internet, because they don't have that part of the brain that is responsible for critical thinking, analysis, high-level functioning hasn't matured. And that is also what makes it very easy for them to get addicted. They won't know when they're being groomed, for example. They won't pick it as grooming. As an adult, will easily pick that. They don't know about the dangers unless and until, Juliet, we get to educate them. So my starting point is, do they have the information? Even as the schools are encouraging, as parents are encouraging, as the global, we are moving into the space of, we are talking about digital, are we also educating them about proper use and appropriate use? Because it's not everything that is wrong. What is important is the boundaries, and what is important is for them to understand, when does it now stop being appropriate to inappropriate use. And coming back to that scenario of South Africa, why did the children get there? I think that's a conversation as Africans we've never really wanted to face and ask ourselves, what is it that happened that the children had to get to the streets? And that was South Africa. There are very many other ways. Children in the African spaces, it's only that they are not on the streets, but does that mean they don't have issues to bring them to the streets? No, they are still going through a lot of issues. What do we need to do? Involve children. We are talking about child participation. We cannot speak as authority figures about issues that are affecting children without us getting to hear the children, the issues affecting children, and hearing them from the children themselves, because they're in that space, they know exactly what they need, they're the expert in the space, and we can only come to respond to the issues. Are we giving them the space?
Absolutely. Great, thank you so much. I want to invite Evelyn to make a comment. So, just going back to the children now, we're assuming these are now Kenyan children. They've taken up the platform. They have, and I have these children in my mind. I'm remembering these children who went out and they were complaining about high school. I don't know how many of us got an opportunity to see that. And they said, they were naming and shaming the high schools and what they did. Evelyn, I'm wondering, are there ways that we can now, from the legal perspective, that we can respond and help these children who, to some people, they are rogue. They have gone, they are protesting, which is not acceptable. As Njihia is saying, in the African community, we do not allow our children to protest against us. Is there ways to protect our children from a legal perspective? Children who want to participate, who want to protest, who want to take to the streets, but they're using the online streets.
Each and every one of us, including the child, has a right to express themselves, has a right to communicate under the Constitution, and that cannot be taken away. And the fact that these children saw it fit to, voice what their concerns are is actually very commendable. What can we do? Because, they voiced their concerns in a platform, in a social media platform. So the question is, us as the duty bearers to take care of these children, we have to pick it up, That's why we have several different organizations, like the civil society, like the government. We just have departments that actually take care of these children. And so from a legal perspective, I think it is proper that they voiced. The question is, after they voiced, and we also, what did we do, right? So that now we pick up the concerns, are these legit concerns? Do the police need to be involved? Does the, NAT and people who are responsible for their education need to be involved? Did they pick it up? Is the TSC supposed to be involved? Did they pick it up? And so from that, we need to pick it up and have that conversation from that point, number one. And then in the event that we feel that however they voiced their concerns was not right, then we go back to what Margaret said, that they need to be taught on how to end the channels to voice their concerns. Could they have gone to maybe the head teacher? And then, so what channels do we use to have this out here? And how do we pick out the legal issues so that they are assisted in those schools?
Brilliant. Thank you very much. And I'm happy that you pick up the conversation in privacy, and I'll bring it up to the panel again. But now allow me to go to Eve and ask this question. Now, there are statistics that were given here. Honorable Kibosia mentioned them. Flora mentioned them. We have them on our pamphlets. We are talking about the digital internet penetration in Africa and in Kenya and access to all this. But one of the things that have been discussed by the international community, and we have all agreed in the digital space, is that for us to make it safe and appropriate, that we have to have what we call digital literacy. It's interesting when you talk about digital literacy, everybody says, but the children have been taught how to use the computers, how to use but the children also spend a lot of their time with either their parents, their siblings, or their teachers. So I want to ask Eve, what is maybe the rate of digital literacy for parents, for children, and what is it that we can do together as a collective to enhance that digital literacy, particularly especially for parents? I'm worried a lot about the parents.
Oh, interesting. I'd like to categorize that in perspective of my parents, that I have to teach them, like, this is what you need to do, this is what you need to stay away from. Then let's say the parents of now, maybe if I was a parent, for example, it would be a lot different because I'm more aware on what is going on. And for our prior parents, maybe around my age, most of them are actually very familiar with what we have right now. But the older generation is where the issue comes in. Our grandparents or our dads are now losing their entire retirement fee based on the online literacy. Literally, that's what's happening. And that is what we were talking about a day ago, really. So basically, with the literacy part, the older generation, the likes of between 50 upwards to 100 and something, I hope your parents get to that level, but that's where the literacy now is a lot leaner based on our parents. So basically, as our parents grow older, they become more vulnerable to these particular online scams, I would say, that would ask them like, hey, you can invest maybe your retirement and get an interest of probably even 10 to 12%. And with that, they're not able to see what's the outcome to it, and they might now end up being swindled of their finances. And that would be the disadvantage from a parent's perspective. Let me now take it back to the children's perspective, where digital literacy is really good for kids at this now age, because they can start really getting to know so much. And again, I like what you said earlier in terms of the child psychology. Children are they're gullible, and they're easy to pull into something illegal, I would say. Let me put it in that term, where they're not so familiar to what is going around. They're just keen to learning new things, and they're so curious to learning new things. It might be a bad thing, it might be a good thing. So on the side of the good thing, they'd be able to really learn so much, and they can push towards getting good in what they do, and they can also use that platform as a completion of assignments and things like that. So that's the one good side about it. The bad side about it is, one is in terms of digital literacy. Talk about the children who are not able to get access to those tablets. What happens? Or those devices that they need. What happens? They will not be able to access the digital platform or the data that they're supposed to use to grow themselves. Then on the bad side, rather, I would say if all these children are quite digital literate, what happens? They're really good in it, and some would know what is bad, and some would know what is good, right? And now those who might not have so much knowledge about it, the people still play with their psychology. It might lead to social engineering, and it might end up being there's a story that went around where a child ended up committing suicide based on the online engagement with someone. It's more like online grooming that she mentioned earlier. So with such cases, this child had access to a tablet. Someone out of somewhere just decided to push them to access malicious links, and they ended up being pushed to now getting to commit suicide and things like that. And now back to the safety part, where you can now create a safer devices where you have control in terms of security. Does your device that you give the child has like something like an antivirus? Are the links that they're accessing secure? So those are the two perspectives to look at from a security perspective also. So I think I've tried to cover the cycle from the old age to the mid age and to the child age. Yeah.
Absolutely, thank you. I hope that there is a way we can make the tools, especially for making the digital space secure for children, more available, and there is a way that we can create awareness around that. Just coming back to Ms. Njihia, and Eve has mentioned a number of dangers there that the children have. And I just want to ask you to give us practical tips for children who have, either experienced abuse or they've been victims of abuse online or through the digital space. Whether it is people, what is it called, sharing their content, if obscene images, if they come across some of this, what should children do? What are some of the practical steps that also the parents can take?
Thank you for that. Can I take that question a little back and start from the point of, again, as parents, we need to ask ourselves, and I like what Eve is bringing up, what time and how much time do children have access to the devices? How much time are they accessing the devices on any particular day? And the reason we need to ask ourselves that question as parents is also because then too much exposure, too much use of the devices, it's very, very stimulating, and that is also what is going to lead to a lot of other issues, include for having our children, they're going to be struggling with sleep, especially because of the overstimulation of using the devices. So even as we are saying it's okay for them to use them, that's where the regulation comes in. That's where the aspect of the control comes in, that you can only, this is the latest time, working with what time do these children go to sleep, and then you regulate and make sure that you create enough time for them to be off screen so that then they get prepared to go to sleep. Then the other thing I want us to take us back to is what happens to the children, especially where we are talking about issues of online abuse. Now, one of the things, Juliet, is that it takes a very long time for a child to even get to know they're being groomed, and that leads them now into the abuse. They don't even know that the person they're interacting with virtually is actually not that person. They don't even know that the images these people are sending, they've actually picked them from the internet, and that's not the real person. Until it happens, like it happened in the city once, this girl had just been chatting with this person and was so sure that this was another 19-year-old they were chatting with, only for the person to, when they eventually physically met in a car park in one of the mall in the basement, to realize this is a 30-something plus. And that was the first shock on her. Before then, a lot of other bad things happened. So what are the tips that we need to give parents and to give children who are, especially who have an experience of abuse? That number one, we need to encourage parents to keep close with their children, to talk to them, and to ensure that they're their first call of point. That if a child is going through something, then it should be that that child can come to you. So can we be accessible parents? Can we be available parents? Can we be parents that are approachable and that are easy so that our children can come to us? Number two, as a parent, try to be a little bit of, tech savvy to a certain extent. If you're the age that Eve is talking about, maybe quite a struggle trying to catch up with everything that is happening in this space. But at least the basic and the bare minimum is to try and understand what are those apps. And, just be there, be online also, so that you get an experience of what is happening. I'm sure chances are that when the children discover you're on TikTok, then they're going to use pseudonyms because they don't want you to follow them, and they can be following you, but you actually don't even know that it's your children who are following you. But try as a parent and just get a bit of those very basic skills, be on those social media platforms, just to get an idea of what is happening. Then it becomes easy for me as a parent to even educate my child, because I'm in there and I am seeing. I'm not saying that you post all your children photos and your grandchildren photos and everything, but just be there and try to be present and to have a bit of a understanding. And for the children, I would like them to know this, that there's a very high probability, and maybe even the people in the digital space would tell us, that the people you're interacting with are not actually the real guys, and that they're just using pseudonyms and they're using pseudo accounts and they are not real. One of the things I would tell you, please don't post anything about yourself. Don't post pictures about yourself. This particular girl, she had trusted this person so much, she actually gave an address of where they live by the guy asking, drop me a pin. And she did drop the pin from home. And what does that mean? The guy knew exactly where this girl lives. Don't give details about yourself. Don't give details about your parents, because they ask you, by the way, what do your parents do? And you're like, my mother works at Technical University. That's where I work. So then it's very easy for this guy to follow up from the Technical University website and look for the staff who are there, and they can pick my picture and they will get every information about me. Stop giving personal information. Don't talk about where you go to school. Don't post your photos to someone that you don't know, because of the aspect of the image permanency. and you don't know who else has access to this image. And because of leaving the digital footprints, don't tell them about your friends, because once I know that Juliet is my friend, it's easy to go to Juliet's digital space, and whatever apps, and they can actually trace me from there. So any information that leads to them knowing about you, please try and keep that information private unless you know who you're interacting with. And finally, when you realize that the kind of questions they're asking are questions that are geared towards getting to know you at a personal level, or they're inviting you to go and meet them somewhere, it's time to disclose. And it's time to talk to someone who is an adult and who is responsible. And if you must, and I'm using the word here, if you must, because you shouldn't go, if you must go and meet this person, please make sure there's someone around there who is watching, because it's not just about anything, it's also about your physical safety.
Thank you very much, Njihia, for those practical steps that you've given us 4 or 5 practical steps that we can take as children, and reminding us as parents that we have to be digitally savvy if we're going to give our children those gadgets. Joachim, the conversation has gotten to where we're talking about children using pseudonyms. So that they do not know that if that you do not know as a parent that you're following them. And a conversation I had with children once when I was training them on digital safety, they said, "But what about our right to privacy?" They said, it's a constitutional right. So I guess the question I have for you is there a balance? First of all, can we say, we are going to allow our children to be children, but at the same time protect them, but at the same time allow them to have privacy rights? How do we put the balance there? I want to ask, as parents, as friends of children, but also as an organization or NGOs, is there ways that we can have that balance between the right to privacy and child protection?
So thank you for the question. The right to privacy and the balance that comes with it begins with a conversation with a child. Ideally, if you look into some of the hindrances that the Disrupting Harm reports give towards why children do not access the internet, one of them is the fact that children share devices with other people who are adults. Ideally, children felt like that denied them the right to privacy, and so they felt like their right to explore the online space is inhibited. As a parent, I would look at it from this perspective. I have a discussion with my child, and I've clearly educated or enlightened my child on what is right and what is wrong within the online platform. Then it is my responsibility as a parent to make sure that this child understands that her right to privacy is ensured when I give her a device to use. Otherwise, if I have to follow every step, every site that the child goes to, then I'm inhibiting the privacy of this child. If this child has an Instagram account, and I give conditions that if you have to use the Instagram account, then I need to look into who you send messages to, and the girls you're talking to, and the boys you're talking to, then you inhibit the privacy the right of privacy to that child. But if you have a discussion with this child that doing this is wrong, doing this is right, and that discussion is very clear within the home, then I think you get the balance. So I feel like the balance between the right to privacy and the right to access the online platform without restrictions begin with a conversation right at home. And that's why the issue of children protecting themselves, knowing how can I protect myself, I should know that I should be a smart child. when I go to the internet, and it's the responsibility of a parent or a caregiver to make sure that this child knows. When we talk of smart, like Njihia has explained, ideally you should not share information that is private to you and confidential. You should not meet people who you've met online physically. You should not accept gifts. You should not accept requests from people that you don't know. You should know that not all information in the online platform is reliable. And if you have to meet someone, then you need to disclose to an adult. So it begins there, a discussion with a caregiver, be it a parent, be it a guardian, be it a teacher, or anyone in charge of looking after the safety of the child. Then you can get that balance in that sense.
Shouldn't there be a balance between right to privacy and safety as well, in the sense that when you're talking about something on the social media, I think the question to the child would be, are you comfortable with what you're posting? Yeah. Is it some information that if your father, your mother, your teachers, your aunties, and your uncles had access to it, would you be embarrassed about it or not? And if the answer is I would be embarrassed, that's where now the issue of, okay, let's talk about what is it that you're posting.
Yeah.
Brilliant. Thank you, Njihia, for reiterating that particular point on the balance between the right to child protection and privacy. And to Evelyn, Njihia talked about the dark side of what the digital platforms can be for children. And from your work, I want to understand what is the link between gender-based violence and the digital environment and child online exploitation, for instance. Is there a nexus, legally speaking? And what are the protections that we have for children from the legal perspective? Thank you.
Yeah, there is a link. As the speakers, I believe, Njihia and Eve, have spoken about grooming. They've mentioned that a lot. That is part of sexual abuse, because the grooming, at the end of the day, is supposed to benefit the adult who is doing the grooming sexually, so they have the sexual gratification. There's online harassment of these children. There's general cyberbullying by the children themselves, that is peer-to-peer, and also just adults bullying children for some reason. The internet is a wild place to be in. And so therefore, this child had or needs to be protected. And that's why, as Honorable Kibosia was giving the speech, she mentioned that the Children's Act actually protects these children from the cyberbullying, from the online harassment. And so therefore you can approach court through that. But let's not forget there are other avenues like the criminal justice system avenue. You can go to the police. You can report this. And the beautiful thing is that nowadays you don't even need the parent to be the one reporting. The child can be accompanied by anyone, can be the teacher, can be the social worker, anyone that they have found it fit to disclose to the police station, and action can be taken. Of course, there are protocols where the parent or guardian needs to be told that, your child is here and this is what they're presenting with, but we have avenues, and we encourage parents to actually take these avenues. One of the reasons why probably we do not have so many of these cases being prosecuted, or maybe a civil route being followed, is that there isn't information out there. Parents do not know. We are still struggling with understanding how TikTok works. And so therefore we have no choice but to get on board and understand that, so that we can protect our children. And so, of course, when you approach the courts, for instance, in the Children Act, the Children Court, being a specialized court, has so much power as long as it's in the best interest of the child, they have so much power to protect this child. And so we cannot downplay the importance of the Children Act. We cannot downplay the importance of the criminal justice system in protecting our children. But it all starts with informing the child and informing the parents of what to do and what their rights are.
Amazing. We have, I think, the last maybe 2 minutes to be able to wrap up. Eve, please.
I was just going to ask her a question in terms of how do you now deal with the peer-to-peer? Let's say each of us were grooming each other and we're just 15-year-olds. How do you deal with such from a legal perspective, especially when now parents are involved and they're like, this is not my child and all those things?
Parents who are in denial that their children cannot, It becomes difficult when it comes to peer-to-peer, when that is the case. However, that is why we have services like the counseling services, right? So if we have to involve our schools, because these children are in school somewhere, we can only communicate to them. If it, when we bring out this information to them that this is wrong, you shouldn't be doing this, then I think we are on the right path. Several institutions offer this, and that's the best way. Yeah.
Well, thank you. Thank you so much, Eve and Evelyn. That's wonderful. I think the next panel will actually be addressing access to justice. And one of the things I would like to hear, I hope the next panel actually deals with, is share renting. It's interesting to hear that that the court ordered that the parents put down the photos of or remove their photos of their child from the digital platforms. Ladies and gentlemen, I want to invite you for 1 minute to give your parting shot on this amazing conversation. We will start with Joachim and head on now.
So when we talk of the right of the child in the online platform, we are saying that the responsibility of protecting children lies with all of us. As a child, you have a responsibility. And remember, with every right that is granted to a child, comes with it a great responsibility. So we have a responsibility to the child, a responsibility to parents, a responsibility to civil society organizations and the government to make sure that children are protected at all times. Again, there's one group of children that we would not wish to forget. These are children who are perpetrators of online crimes. For the longest time, a lot of emphasis have been given to children who are survivors. But the child who has perpetrated the crime has, over the time, been set aside. I feel like there are also services, reintegration services, rehabilitation programs that are there to make sure that this child also is facilitated. So I want to leave it at that, and thank you.
For me, like Joachim says, the responsibility for protecting children is everyone's responsibility. And I would just like to highlight that we may not think that online exploitation has such adverse effects on children, but children who are going through online abuse, they are more at risk to anxiety, stress, and those are the kind of children today we are seeing presenting with self-harm. They are more likely to be depressed. They're more likely to engage in substance use as a way of trying to manage what they are dealing with. They are more likely to also drop academically and other behavioral issues. So what do these children need? Acceptance, they need validation, they need us to understand that they're children and probably they didn't even know what they were getting themselves into. And the only way to help them pick up their pieces is to ensure that they have access to quality child therapy services. So let's keep the conversation going. Let's avail it to them. Let's support them so that we can make their future better and we can help them grow. Thank you.
Thank you so much for that. And what I would advocate for is, I like the part that everyone here is saying that it's good to have child safety first, and that is really key. And what I would say from my side is, I'd like to engage more children in digital literacy. Why I would say that is, I would have learned so much if I had access when I was younger, and I would be the best hacker maybe in this Kenya right now. Yeah. And For a few other kids I've been able to train on cybersecurity, for example, they have really done the best certifications right now, and they're just completing their A-levels or Form 4 right now. And they're actually, one of them is employed by KPMG right now, and is only 17 years old. So see the impacts that these children can get if there's a lot of digital literacy towards the kids and the younger generation to getting access to information, and now getting the part of getting to know what to do and how best they can leverage that for the good purpose, or the good cause, of course, not anything illegal.
Right. So what I'd say is that tech is here, and it's here to stay. And so it's for us as a people, as a society, to learn how to have or safeguard our children when they are in the digital space and they are using that. We should remember that there are laws that protect them, and do not be shy to seek for advice. Even if you call, we have so many persons represented here. Call them, listen to them, understand what you can do so that you protect your child when they are in these tech spaces. And so because the technology space and online spaces are being used, they're misused, they're weaponized against these children. That is where we have radicalization. That is where we have, sexual exploitation. So we need to be vigilant so that we protect our children. Thank you.
Wow, thank you so much. We have learned quite a lot today. If I could just summarize quickly from our panelists. The first thing is that the digital environment is not all bad. There is quite a lot of positive things to learn, and I'm looking forward to having a good conversation with Eve from SheHacks, so she can tell us how to hack positively. But we've also learned that there is need for structures to be able to respond to the issues that children do bring, especially if they use the digital platforms as well as offline platforms. The other thing we've learned is that we need to regulate and control the use of the digital environment for our children. We've also heard about the need for children to be careful, to not share their information, to have an opportunity to disclose. And for that to happen, as parents and adults and guardians, we must be available and create a safe space for children. But also Joachim has reminded us that there is a balance between child protection and the right to privacy as well, and we must be able to observe that. And finally, that there is definite link between online exploitation and sexual abuse, and that we must report, and we can use the line 116 to report cases. The parents can also call for advice and psychological help and support on behalf of their children and for their children, and the children themselves can actually make this phone call themselves. So thank you so much. Thank you, Joachim. Thank you, Njihia. Thank you, Eve. And thank you, Evelyn. And I wish you all a good day. If there are questions, please use what was it called that you were given? There's a code that you were given. Please use that. Thank you so much. I want to give back the microphone to the MC.
Wow, what an insightful panel. There was so much that was discussed. I don't think we'll even pick out like what stood out to you, because the panelists have done such a good job of going in depth, but also summarizing a lot of the important parts. Just to reiterate, that would be fantastic to dig deeper into some of those specific things that were discussed at later episodes of the podcast. And before I move on to our last part, I just also want to say a huge shout out to the panelists that we had. First of all, it was moderated by Ruth Juliet Gachanja, who advises the Chief Justice on children matters. They recently launched the Child Justice Strategy. So a lot of amazing people on the panel. Our amazing Miss Njihia, who we're so always happy to have on the podcast, and all our other activities. She was actually quite unwell that day, and so she really did sacrifice a lot to join us, and we are so grateful.
Yeah.
And for everyone we had on the panel, just a huge thank you, and again to our sponsors. So one thing that is very important to us, a lot of the conversations that we have on the podcast are very heavy. They are can tend to be sad. And if you've watched the pilot series or if you're new here, we are very keen on making sure that no one leaves our episode feeling depressed.
Right.
Yeah.
And so it's time for games. So this last section is where we get to know the co-hosts a bit better. And we're going to play a game called This or That. And what that means is I ask you A or B, and you choose A. And it's supposed to be a quick round, so 1 minute for each of you. We'll start with the lovely Miss Zipporah on my right. And so, Brian Bright, you can be the timekeeper.
Yep.
Are we ready? Get ready.
Yes, I'm
ready.
ready.
Okay.
Get ready. Guys, I'm so funny. I'm so
I
funny.
know.
This is
Please.
Okay, are you ready?
Yeah. 3, 2, 1, go.
Okay, playlist or podcasts?
Playlist.
Shoes or slippers?
Slippers.
Pork or beef?
Beef.
Swimming pool or beach?
Beach.
Fruits or vegetables?
Fruits.
Cats or dogs?
Cats. Da.
Summer or winter?
Winter.
Oh, so we have this weather. Okay. Salt or pepper?
Salt.
Salt, okay. Cash or cards?
Cats.
Cookies or chips?
Chips.
Soda or juice?
Juice.
Farm or city?
City.
Text or call?
Checks. All day.
Okay. New phone or new clothes?
That's a tough one. At this moment, new phone,
You
please.
need a new phone. Black or white?
White.
Driver or passenger?
Passenger.
Okay.
Passenger
There you
princess,
go.
of course. Our resident empress. That's our nickname
Yes.
for her at Wakili.sha. All right. So now we know a bit about ZP, right? You are the new. It's your turn to answer.
Okay.
So ZP, you are timekeeper now. 1 minute. Are we ready?
Yes.
Okay. Bright. Driver or passenger?
Driver.
Okay. Laptop or tablet?
Laptop.
Comedy or horror?
Comedy.
Beer or wine?
Wine.
Dine in or dine out?
Dine in.
Of course, you're cooking. I think we need to stress that. Movies or TV shows?
TV shows.
iOS or Android?
iOS.
Waffle or pancake?
Waffle.
Rain or snow?
Rain.
Hey, I've not even finished. Love or money?
Money.
Ice or fire?
Ice.
Curly or straight?
Straight, I guess.
Yeah, okay. Oranges or apples?
Oranges.
Sweet or salty?
Sweet.
Trucks or cars?
Cars.
Lunch or dinner?
Dinner.
Weekends or weekdays?
Weekends.
Pizza or pasta?
Pasta.
Friends or family? Saved by the bell.
Saved by the timer.
All right, so that's it, guys. I will do my this or that in the next episode, so do tune in, join us for that one. And we want to ask you, please rate, review us on your listening platform, subscribe on YouTube, follow us on our social media at Wakili.sha or Wakili_sha, and the links will definitely be in the description. Thank you guys so much. And once again, thank you to our DAC sponsors. And just checking my notes to make sure I did not forget anything. You can check the report in the description as well. Bye.
Bye, everyone.